Welcome back, 9:14 here on Local 4 Live. Now to a Local 4 investigation on a story we brought you as breaking news last week, a massive fire at that industrial building in Detroit. As state investigators continue to try to figure out what caused the fire at Aevitas at the oil recycling company on Detroit's east side, our own Karen Drew has done her own digging, finding new inspection records that just discovered some questionable activity and violations just a couple of weeks before all this broke out. I can see the documents right here in hand. Are these damning? Are they pointing or painting a picture?
Well, what's interesting about this, because when this broke, Nick, you and I were obviously on the air together,
right?
So we were looking at documents that we found, and we traced back years ago, and they seem to be pretty minor violations that they took care of. But this document that you have on your screen there, that's important because it's recent. It was May 13th when this was listed, and so we're talking about 6 weeks before the fire. I want you to take a closer look at what we found.
They can't really get a handle on when there's going to be some small explosions.
You saw the fire, the smoke that filled the air, and then we started asking questions about this industrial blaze that happened last week.
There's a lot of product that leaked out that is in the street with oil-water mix.
Firefighters arrived to the scene about 5 in the morning, began battling those flames at this facility that recycles oil. It took hours to get under control. A firefighter was injured and oil leaked onto the roadway. It was a mess. So what was going on behind the scenes at Aevitas? According to this inspection report done about 6 weeks before the fire, the company was cited for violations, including drums of LIB, or liquid industrial byproduct, were stored outdoors, exposed to weather. They need to be stored indoors. The inspection report also found several indoor containment areas and sumps containing excessive LIB, some to the point of being completely full and even overflowing. So could those violations have impacted the fire? In the report it states the sumps and secondary containment are not meant to store liquid industrial byproduct. And when these areas aren't pumped out, they are essentially open tanks.
And that's the key. When someone says something's an open tank and you talk about liquid industrial byproduct.
Yeah.
So, of course, we reached out to the company. They gave us a statement. We put that on Click On so people can read it in detail.
Okay.
They said, they were going to take a look. They're going to make improvements and all of that. But a lot of times when we do stories like this, we always say, what's next? But I want to say, why did it happen in the first place?
Sure, right.
Because it's kind of easy for a company to say, oh, well, we're going to do A, B, and C, but where was the problem? Because if that problem exists, it might exist in another plant, another facility, or another avenue.
Yeah.
And so I didn't get really great, straight answers on why it occurred. There was some discussion about, that drum that was outside that was supposed to be inside.
Yep.
They said that, it was on sloped ground and there wasn't going to be of concern, but they're moving it in. But it's like, you know the rules.
Well, I was going to ask you that too. It seems kind of frustrating that there are rules and regulations in places for a reason.
Right.
And it would be great if we come across a business that is completely violation free and they're doing everything perfectly. That rarely happens. There's always some kind of, usually a minor issue. As I lose a microphone here. Oh, that was my IFB, it's okay. But in this case, it seems like, and we don't know if this actually contributed to the fire, but the question
either
becomes,
way, it's still a violation.
Either way, right. And it probably wasn't, it could be a contributing factor, right? So then you say, okay, well, why?
Right, why is it happening?
Yeah.
And one of the ones, and we didn't go into detail on that because, we didn't have as much time, but I have more time with you, Nick. And one of the points that it said the secondary containment area under the manifold where LIB, that's the liquid industrial byproduct, could be pumped, was the most concerning. They're saying that, these areas should be pumped out. They're basically open tanks. The company is going to say, well, at the end of the day, we do the pumping of it out, but it's like, but it shouldn't be overflowing. It shouldn't be full.
Right.
So there's a question of how are we storing it?
Right.
Why is it overflowing?
Yeah.
And, I have to say, that was just because we were curious and we checked. I did get some tipsters saying, oh, you should check into some other stuff too. So we are going to keep checking.
More
this
work
is
to
a
do.
document from the Eagle, which is does the inspections there.
Right.
But it's concerning.
What's also challenging too is that in a fire like that, you never know if they're actually going to find out the root cause. Everything's gone.
Everything's gone, and that was part of the thing, because when I asked to go, can I do an on-site interview and all of this, they said, no, and it's not suitable. And then even the state investigators say, we're not done with our investigation, because a lot of the things that we would need to take
Right,
a look at
right.
do not exist or do not exist in the
Right,
form that they
right.
should be in.
Yeah.
So we will stay on top of it. We'll see.
And I'd be very curious to see what the air quality reports show.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you were there that morning. I mean,
it was
I was
nasty.
afraid for
It was
you
nasty.
just
Yeah.
because, you were there for hours, you're breathing it, and then those booms that we were hearing. So when
Yes,
you hear that big
little
boom,
explosions happening all over the
there's
place.
explosions,
Yes.
there's liquid. We're
And you
talking,
never know what's in that smoke.
you don't know what's
Right,
in that smoke,
right.
and you don't know the long term. And then remember, it leaked onto the street.
Right,
So,
more cleanup.
Yes, I guess you're quote lucky it was an industrial area and there weren't residents there, but it's still
There's still
it's
impact.
the
There's
city
still
of
an
Detroit.
impact.
We should all care.
Right, right. Okay, Karen Drew, keep digging as always.
will.
Thank you much. We'll be right back after a short break.